Today we're driving the 2020 Mazda CX-9. This is a signature all-wheel drive painted in soul red crystal metallic. The interior is a deep chestnut Napa leather, which I will say is gorgeous. Mazda has come so far in the recent years with its interior trim quality, feel, fit, finish. This is a really nice car to be in. The CX-9 has only one engine option, and it's actually a pretty good one. It's more fuel efficient than some of the competition, and it still has a decent amount of horsepower with 227 horsepower, 310 pound-feet of torque on regular 87 octane fuel, and 250 horsepower, 320 pound-feet of torque on premium 91 or higher octane. We have iActive all-wheel drive, nice 20-inch wheels, and a lot of new features for 2020. We have a pretty reasonable base price of $46,115. That comes with a 5-year, 60,000-mile powertrain warranty and a 3-year, 36,000-mile bumper-to-bumper warranty. The CX-9 is rated for 20 miles to the gallon in the city, 26 on the highway, and 23 mpg combined. One of the first things I noticed about the CX-9 was just how quiet the engine is. At idle, you can barely tell it's on. It's a good thing they have a tachometer on the left. New for 2020, we have a 360-degree camera. You can switch modes by pressing the little setting button in the bottom left. Again, it's typical Mazda reverse camera, nothing special. It's actually quite low res, but it does the job and even gives you a little graphic for how far the wheels are turned, which is kind of cool. We have Apple Carplay, Android Auto in the CX-9. Again, using the scroll wheel, it just gets easier with time. I do actually really like this system for navigating this screen. We have lots of apps available, and of course the standard Mazda infotainment. To switch between Apple CarPlay and that, you just hold the home button, which is an easy switch. Down here also we've got some quick buttons that take us to the navigation and your music settings here as well. So if you've got Waze open as your nav, that's what it's going to take you to, which is kind of nice. Mazda knows the limitations of their navigation. Heated steering wheel, which is really useful this time of year. Heated and cooled seats as well, though you can't turn them on at the same time. Manufacturers have pretty much gotten rid of that, which I suppose is probably a good idea. And we have lane keep assist, parking sensors. You can even have a little button to see your cameras, your surround view. I don't know if it'll show you a forward-facing camera. Yes, it does. There we go. Forward and reverse. Look at that. And of course, there's a new mode here. Mazda's done away with the traction control button, and they've gone into it's called like an off-road mode. Basically, it will torque vector and brake the wheel with the least amount of traction to send power to other wheels. So it seems like a pretty good system. I actually haven't played around with it in the snow or any light grip surfaces, but just kind of hooning around here in the parking lot, it seems to do a pretty good job of not being too intrusive. Something I would like to test, though, in the slippery stuff at some point. Otherwise, really nice cabin, really beautiful interior. You've got a little space for your phone here in the center console. A decently sized glove box. Place for sunglasses up here. A little tiny guy to block the sun here. The straight pipes claim that this little thing doesn't count, but I think it does. It still does a good job blocking, and it doesn't impede your view to the side either. It's a big brute, and maybe not the prettiest thing Mazda makes, but really the best part about the CX-9 is how it drives. And we'll get it on the road here soon. There's also a new key fob for 2020. I'm not a big fan, honestly. It feels a little bit light, feels a little bit cheap. It looks like they kind of did something similar to what Volvo's doing, where they put all the buttons on the side. But it's just a little bit flimsy and not really my cup of tea. Third row, you get a decent amount of room. You can actually fit some adults back there. Of course, we also have the captain's chairs, which seems to be a popular option with these vehicles. You can easily fold these seats down here in a 50-50 split and get a lot more cargo space. Everything's manually operable, which is always cool in these cars. Less of a chance for something to break. Some privacy screens in the rear. It's pretty easy to move these chairs up and get into that third row. I'll show you guys here what things look like. And that seat stops just a little bit forward so that you have enough legroom in the back. It's not terribly uncomfortable back here. There's actually a decent amount of room. And we even get 2 little USB charge ports that now say 2.5 amps, which is always useful. I remember back in the day when Mazda USB ports didn't even charge your device. They would actually discharge while they were plugged in. These days, they want to make it clear that that's no longer the case. You get a little center console here too, very similar to what's in the front seat. More 2.5 amp chargers, as well as heated seats. These captain chairs are really nice. You have a lot of adjustability to moving forward. There's a little bit of legroom. For me at 5'10", this is pretty decent back here, but I thought there might be a little bit more space. I have plenty of space to put my feet under the front seats, and I am raised up a little bit back here, but for someone who's a little bit taller, you might be a little bit cramped back here. Only one sunroof, no panoramic roof. Does make for the cabin to be a little bit darker. Of course, rear climate control, all that good stuff. All right, let's take this for a drive. It's been a couple of years since I've had a CX-9. And it's definitely one of my favorite vehicles in this class of 3-row crossovers. Mazda just does a really nice job with the dynamics on this car. It's pretty fun to drive for what it is. And it's interesting how their driving philosophy carries over even into their large 3-row SUV. Even little things as to how you can downshift with the gear shifter. This is the traditional rally car, touring car shift layout where it's forward to downshift and back to upshift. Very quick to respond. This transmission is awesome and it works really, really well with this 2.5 liter turbo. It's a really nice pairing. It's also seen in the new CX-5 signature, which is makes it a pretty quick car. And in the CX-9, it's actually it's an acceptable amount of power. You have plenty of passing power, and we've got some wheel spin from the front wheels there. I will say this is a front-wheel drive biased all-wheel drive system, and it feels it. You definitely feel a little bit more front-driven when you're hustling the CX-9 around the corners. But it does get the job done, and it does give you traction when you do need it. Around these corners, I have really nice body control, great ride quality. It's super well composed over the bumps and under cornering load. Let's see how acceleration handles shooting out of this corner here. Getting a little traction control light there. This is an easy vehicle to push, and it's very approachable at the limit. You get a little bit of steering feel you have a pretty good idea of what the front tires are doing through the chassis communication and everything. But it's definitely something that would be a little bit more entertaining on a back road than most vehicles in this class. While we're stuck behind all these slow drivers, let's hop into Apple Carplay and let's do a quick sound test here. Again, really easy to navigate this infotainment. Mazda's done a really nice job designing the system to work with a scroll wheel. I didn't used to be as impressed with Bose in-car systems, but recently, in the last few years, they've done a really nice job in Mazdas, and the CX-9 is no exception. It's a really clear, crisp audio system. It has nice, deep, rich tones. It does a really nice job bringing out a lot of clarity from your sound. The sound test. Let's go back into Waze here. We have this off-road mode button engaged here, hoping that it gives us just a little bit more fun around the corners. We'll put it into sport mode for what it's worth. Take an entrance ramp here. For how big and the size of this CX-9, it's surprisingly nimble. It definitely makes you feel that you're driving a smaller, lighter vehicle. Feel the G-vectoring control there, bringing the front end a little bit. We'll take it out of sport mode for highway driving. And I've noticed that even if you turn off the vehicle and turn it back on, you don't have to re-engage cruise control if you've left it on after you've turned it off, which I think is really nice. It's a really good radar-guided system. It does a very nice job with all aspects. It's a smooth system. It's easy to change your following distance. It works really, really well. This is one of the best implementations of cruise control that I've found, and that you just don't have to take your eyes off the road to use it, which I really appreciate. We have lane keep assist turned off here. And I don't know. I honestly don't use the lane keep and the steering systems very much in cars, so I don't really test them a whole lot. We're not even close to autopilot yet, so I'd rather just do the steering myself. But the cruise control is something that I use quite often in these vehicles, and in the CX-9 this works great. Alright, let's give this thing some beans here. I mean, acceleration isn't going to give you the punch that the CX-5 is going to have with this powertrain, but it's ample for the vehicle. And the pro to this 4-cylinder is you do get slightly better fuel economy. Over the last 300 miles of filming and driving, probably a little bit spiritedly, this has averaged 20 miles to the gallon, which is right in line with what this should do in the city. I think if you treated this a little bit more gingerly, you'd have slightly better fuel economy returns. One thing I also like about Mazda is there's no stop-start systems that kind of interrupt your driving experience. This is a simple car, but it also gives you everything that you need. It's not overly feature rich to the point that it's distracting, but it has everything that I think someone who's going to be shopping for this brand would want. You don't quite get all the technology that the Germans have in this class, but at the same time, I think sometimes the Germans don't really do their technology very well, and I don't really know what you're paying for at that point. Whereas in this regard, this has the driving experience, this has the enjoyment, and the fun factor for an SUV without being overly complicated. And the technology that is here is very usable. It works well, except for maybe the blind spot monitoring in the mirrors, which has always kind of been a little complaint of mine with Mazda. But that's something that you can also just turn off the audible warning on and just have the light flash. The problem with it is that whenever you merge over, it tells you that there's still a car in your blind spot even well after it's safe to merge in front of them. I've complained about it in some of my previous videos, and it's still kind of the case here. In some vehicles you can adjust the sensitivity of that, but unfortunately here that's not an option. It's not a huge deal. It's just one of my really only complaints that I have with Mazdas. And another thing too I appreciate about Mazda is that a lot of their cars throughout their range have a similar feel of quality and a similar driving feel. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Volvo, whereas if you have one Mazda, you're instantly familiar with their whole lineup. And a pretty decent garage would be one of these and a Miata. And it's a lot of the same switchgear, a lot of the same infotainment, a lot of the same usage throughout this cabin that you'd already be familiar with if you had one. Just a note on handling too, we have a slightly greasy day out here today, and you can really feel the G-vectoring control do its work. Once I just get a hit of understeer, I can feel that front end just get brought in just a little bit tighter with that all-wheel drive system and the braking. As always, great transmission. Only 6 speeds, but again, that's all you need. It does a really good job shifting, and the gear logic is fantastic. Really nice headlights with the CX-9 as well. We do have a POV night drive on this car from a while ago. I encourage you to go check that out on the Winding Road channel. But hopefully this will give you kind of an idea of what everything looks like at night. I also have pretty decent visibility. Forward visibility is fantastic. I can see really well out of my rear view mirror. Side blind spots aren't too bad. The C-pillar with the seats and everything is a little bit tough to read. But overall, I'd say it's pretty good. It's so nice to drive something with a traditional torque converter automatic after all these CVTs these last few weeks. It's just so much more engaging and responsive. And honestly, Mazda is doing some of the best torque converters on the market these days in their cars. I think we'll leave it at that. I feel like I say the same things in every Mazda video that I film, but that's because every Mazda is kind of the same. Just pick your size and pick your design and your CX- whatever. So that'll wrap it up for this one. Good things for the CX-9 as always, and if something like this fits your needs, you have a larger family, or you just need a larger vehicle to haul people and things, it's a really nice vehicle in this segment, and with all of the new touches and appointments and accoutrement, this CX-9 is pretty good value, I think, too. I'd rather have this over a X3 or and maybe even an Audi in this class. So this definitely is a compelling option. Driving position is comfortable too, and it's a solid cabin too. Everything is bolted together really nicely. No rattles, no shakes, no creaks, no strange noises. Build quality seems really good on this. Yeah. Good times in a Mazda, as always. Unfortunately, it's a little bit of a cloudy day today. This Soul Red metallic really pops in the sunlight. And in the clouds, it's a little bit dreary, but that's okay. It's still a fun, exciting color. One of the best that Mazda makes, in my opinion, and I assume it's pretty popular throughout the brand, too. Alright guys, that's it for this one. We'll see you later. Take it easy.